This video demonstrates how to activate and use a serial number activated Windows application that was constructed from an Excel workbook using the Quick License tool. There's a lot of custom features along the way that you can decide if they're applicable to your application. For example, for this application, we've decided to apply a custom icon to the application. So when it's setting on the Windows desktop, it has its own icon. It looks like all the other professional applications on your Windows computer. Before we get started, we're going to open up Microsoft Excel and set up a couple Trust Center options so that it can run one of these protected applications. So on the File menu, we'll bring up the Options dialog and go to the Trust Center. Within that, if you go to Trusted Locations, make sure the Allow Trusted Locations checkbox is set. And on the macro setting panel, make sure Enable All Macros options is set, and then save those Trust Center settings. When the user launches your application for the first time, they're going to be presented with a license agreement dialog. This is an optional feature of Quick License, which you can decide to enable or not. They can either quit the application or continue. If they decide to continue, they're going to have to activate the application with a serial number that you provide to them during the purchase process. So they'll type in the serial number and the other information you might want to collect. Again, all the different fields of information here, those are optional, and you can add some additional fields if you like, and you can figure that during the setup process. Once they click Activate Now, it sends that information to an online activation server, and they're immediately activated. Once they're activated, they're presented with the Open Data File window. Again, this is an optional window. It could just go directly into your Excel workbook, but most workbooks are of the nature where the user is going to want to create different named copies of the workbook for different clients, projects, or experiments, or whatever the nature of your workbook is. So for example, let's create a couple named copies here. We're going to create one called John, and we'll create another one called Sally. And now the user is able to launch these into Microsoft Excel. Now when the user selects an item in the Open Data File window, clicks Open, or just double clicks on the item, it actually launches into Microsoft Excel. This will take a few seconds as it's going through the open process. And once it goes into Excel, it essentially works exactly like it always did. The user can do all the normal Excel features, except they cannot save out an unprotected copy of the workbook. They can save the data, but it's going to be saved in a protected fashion. Now, before you actually wrap your application, your Excel workbook into an application, you'll probably want to hide formulas, make certain cells editable and other ones view only. You'll probably also for example, in this case, we hid all the grid lines, the column and row headers. We even added some VBA code to hide the ribbon itself so that the user can use the application without actually making changes that might mess it up. When the user saves, or if they decide to close the workbook, it presents them with a Save Changes dialog. Now again, this is an optional feature. Various things when you set up the application. It can present the save dialog every time they close, have it just automatically always close and not save, or automatically always close and save the changes. So you have some different optional features of how you want that to work. And once they're completely closed, the user is going to be presented again with the Open Data File window where they can go to a different instance of your workbook to put some other information in it, or if they're done with your application, they can just click the Quit button. So to summarize this process, we've created a Windows application with its own icon from a Microsoft Excel workbook. We have it set up so that on first launch, the user can be presented with an optional license agreement once they and then they can activate it with a serial number that you provide to them during the purchase process. Once activated, whenever they launch, they can be presented with an optional Open Data File window, or it can go directly into Excel. Within the Open Data File window, you can customize the various buttons to do various things for managing those files. And you might be wondering, where are these files physically stored on the hard drive? And so we'll show you that now. When they open up and when they start creating files within the Open Data File window, they're physically stored at the location c/user/public and then whatever the name of your application is. And here you can see we have an encrypted copy of your workbook stored here for John and for Sally. And this location could actually be changed to a different location on disk if you want to, for example, on a shared drive, so multiple licensed users of your workbook could see the same list of data files.